What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking about appraisals being waived. What does that mean if you're a seller? What does that mean if you're a buyer? Okay. So what is an appraisal? An appraisal is when a buyer is going to be purchasing a home, and they're going to be obtaining financing. So that means that they're going to actually get a mortgage. So let's say they're going to put down a certain amount of money. The bank that's giving them the mortgage is going to require that they send out the bank's representative to appraise the value of the property. And so you've got to think to yourself, the bank is, let's say if you're buying a $900,000 house and you're putting down 10%, which is $90,000. The bank is the one that they're going to be coming in with $810,000 of their own money, and they're going to want to see that that thing is worth $900,000 because they're approving you for that loan. They don't want to lend $810,000 on a property only to find out the thing's only worth $700,000, because if you as the buyer get foreclosed on, the bank's in a bad spot. They're over leveraged, and now they have this house that's not worth what they lent you as the buyer. So that's why they do appraisals. They don't do it because they're trying to protect you as the buyer, that you're not overpaying for the house. They're trying to protect their own money on hand to make sure that they're not over lending on the property. So with that being said, in this current market, we're experiencing a very, very hot market where the prices are going up faster than what the appraisals are being able to keep up with. Meaning, let's say if that $900,000 house now lists on the open market, and there's multiple buyers, which if you're a buyer in this market, you're probably running into a multiple offer situation almost in every single house that you're coming across. So to use that $900,000 house, in the event that there's multiple offers, and what's often a negotiation tactic that a buyer will use is that they'll say, "Hey, I'm not gonna pay you $900,000. I'll pay you $950." Well, if the comparable sales in that particular neighborhood, if everything is worth $900,000, but the buyer's willing to pay $950, what's going to happen? So that's a great question, right? What's going to happen is that if the seller's agent is savvy, they're going to require that the buyer remove the appraisal contingency out of the contract in order to make sure that there's not issues down the road with the appraised value, okay? So what does that mean? Okay, now, if you're a buyer, and again, using that example, the house is worth, the comparable showing a $900,000 value. The buyer that eventually won is willing to pay $950, okay? And then let's say the buyer is also obtaining a 10% loan. They're bringing in 10% down based on their approval. So in the event that the property does not appraise, and let's say the property doesn't appraise at the $950, it only appraises at $900,000, but you as the buyer have waived that appraisal contingency, that means that the bank is going to require, and then so pause, the bank is only going to give you a loan for the appraised amount. So if you're a buyer and you're coming in with a 10% loan to value loan, that means that they're only going to give you an $810,000 mortgage. So what does that mean? That means that you have to bring in your initial $90,000 for your down payment and the extra $50,000. So a frequent question that I get is, well, who has that kind of money, or why would a buyer do that? Well, that's what it's taking to win a negotiation in this current market. Buyers are doing it all over the place, and that's why we're seeing the prices appreciate so fast, is because buyers are saying, fine, I want the house, I'm willing to pay more, accept my offer. And that's what we're observing across the valley. So again, it comes back to, well, why would a buyer do that? Well, that's why buyers are doing that, because they can win the bid. So now, as a buyer, you have to have the cash on hand in order to do that. Let's say if you're coming in with 5% down, and that same $900,000 house, and that's all you have is your 5% down payment, you can't release your appraisal contingency because you don't have the extra cash in the event that the appraisal comes in short. So that creates a problem, and that's where eventually you're not able to compete with those buyers that are coming in with more money, okay? So I know there's a lot of different variables at play. I'm happy to explain the situation if you're a buyer that has a question about what does waiving the appraisal contingency mean for you. The sellers, and this is something that I get a question a lot, is that if you're a seller, if the buyer removes their appraisal contingency, well, what does that mean? Does there still an appraisal that happens? And the quick answer is yes. The bank is still going to send out the appraiser. There's still going to be an inspection done on your property, but it's just the bank is still requiring that you do the appraisal. But let's say you're the homeowner of that $900,000 house. The contract price was $950,000. The bank is still going to bring it in at $900,000, but your buyer, assuming that you've seen proof of funds on hand, you verified that the buyer can bring in that additional capital. It's not an issue, right? But they still have to do an appraisal to make sure that their process is done. There are some cases where the lender will choose not to do the appraisal because maybe the buyer is coming in with 50% down, or they're coming in with such a large down payment that they're not requiring an appraisal. I'm seeing that here and there, but I would still, if you're a seller, I would expect that just because the buyer has waived the appraisal, don't be surprised when in fact they still do an appraisal, a physical inspection. So I know that was a lot, you guys. If you have any more specific questions about what does waiving the appraisal mean, reach out. All my contact information is below. I'd be happy to talk about your specific situation and what the pros and cons are. I mean, I can keep on talking, but that'll be an hour-long video. Reach out. I'd be happy to talk about your specific situation, and I'm happy to help. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.